head as if we know what we're doing, a lot of that's going to be vanity. So as we think about the building, and we also think about the future of the church, we just pray that we're following after you. And we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so a lot of you will remember the one of the themes from the Capitol campaign was The Hobbit. Remember that? And so Bilbo Baggins was asked by Gandalf to go on an adventure. And so I just want to play sort of the end part of that and make a comment about it. Okay, what I like about that, well, there's a lot of things I like about that, but just the energy and enthusiasm, and it's liftoff and things are taking place. And then here's the very next scene, and notice the change in background music and mood. All right, you ready? This is currently where we are on our project. I'm trying to set expectations here.
I signed it.
Everything appears to be in order. Welcome, Master Baggins, to the company of Thorin Oakenshield.
Okay, just notice how much territory they're covering right here. Almost next to none. And that's what it felt like for Christ Community Church. We had all this energy, and we got to June 1st, and we were going on an adventure, and everybody signed up, and we had a great campaign, and then it was... And that's how the adventure is going to play out, at least for the next few years. And so I'm just trying to make sure everybody's on that same level. We can't keep the intensity of the first scene all the way through the next 2 years. So we're going to talk some about that. And just to give you sort of a time frame, and we're completely waiting on stuff from the city or the county. So there's nothing that like we're scrambling to get. It's just responding back to things that they want from us or things that they have to do. And right now, it's a January 1st, start moving dirt, March 1st, start building. So that's great, but most of you were here when it was September 1st and November 1st. So we just keep moving that around. And again, almost all of it at this point is based on just getting stuff to the city and then them getting the stuff that's approval. So we feel confident that there's real progress being made, but it's like the progress of a caterpillar in a cocoon. You know something's happening, but it's not obvious that something's happening. And pretty soon, wings will come out, but right now, our hope is that January 1st is sort of the date for that. To just give us a story always helps in just thinking about why we're doing what we're doing. Ask Craig and Allie Garrison to come up and tell a little bit of their story here and how that connects to the campaign.
Is it on? All right. Thank you, Paul. So Allie and I started coming to the church around 2012 when Paul graciously decided to do our marital counseling. We were strangers to the church. Thank you, Chris, for hooking us up with him. It's been great since then. We've done a lot of different things at the church. I was a deacon for a while. Allie was at the beginning of the tutoring program. We worked with high school students. We've been overseas. Right now, we are the teachers of the kindergarten class upstairs, which is awesome. It's fun to see them every day. And I noticed in the handbook it had a couple of numbers for how the children's program has grown. And I'm glad that my numbers are pretty close. So when we came back from COVID is when we started, and if there was 45 to 50 kids up there, we were stoked. That was an exciting day. Hey, we've got a lot of kids here, let's do this. And now we're at a point where if we only have 50, it's, where's everybody at? What's going on today? You can hear Sharon back there. So it has been just a blessing to see our class. We started when Walker, who joined this morning, was in kindergarten. Now we've got Bonnie, our daughter, in our class. And we have about 12 to 18 kids every week. So we've now got 2 teachers in every Sunday school class instead of 1, which is extremely helpful because some people have a lot of patience, others don't. During the second service, we average about 45 kids. That's when we get to come down here and worship. And if anybody would love to go up there and help, I know they would love to have you come help watch the kids during that service. So I want to shift from physical growth to spiritual growth real quick. Physical growth is great, but without spiritual growth, it's kind of for naught. I think we can all agree on that. And so we get to have a front row seat to watch our kids grow. Now we would have that at the dinner table either way, but getting to see them in Sharon's program, how excited they get to memorize scripture, to memorize the catechisms. Walker to come up here. He's been looking forward to today for months. I mean, his excitement this morning was like Christmas morning. So to see what she's been able to do and create upstairs and that we get to be a part of that has just been phenomenal. But for us, one of the sweetest things that we get to see is the spiritual growth in the leadership upstairs. Like I said, we were high school leaders before we went overseas, and now we're getting to serve alongside kids that we poured into years ago. We have Sam Holdsworth leading the youth. I remember sitting right here with him hiding behind the thing, having many conversations, and now he's leading that. And we're excited that we get to lead beside them. But not only that, they're pouring into our kids. So we get to watch how, hey, we poured into them, and now they're pouring into our kids. And it's a great view of what a family should be and what it looks like for generational passing down the word. I'll close with a story from us. Just recently, we had the opportunity to purchase some land in Pender County, up near the game lands. I love hunting. It backed up to the game lands. I was going to be able to live my dream on a little 10-acre piece of property, 15 minutes from the beach, checked all the boxes. We sat down and had a conversation about it, and we looked at same distance from school, same distance from work, but then we looked at how long it would take us to get here. And it was like 10 times because we just live right around the corner. But it was an immediate no, because this is our family, and we're excited to see how this family is going to grow. With the new building where we're going to have room for the kids, to the new sanctuary where, we'll get to worship together corporately. We're just excited to see where this family goes. So thank you.
I didn't know that last story, but I think it is helpful, and because you're here, you're like that, it should be important to think about how far away you are from your church family. And I know some people have to come some distance, but especially with kids, there's just so many things that if you're further away, then it's, and that starts a drifting process, I'm afraid, sometimes that is hard to come back from. All right, so I wanted to take a couple of minutes just to try to go backwards and try to remember where we started and then kind of get us to where we are. And then Rick's going to come up and talk about more specifically some numbers. But just to refresh our memories, whenever this project started, the first plan, remember, was to build this building out here, the classroom area. And that was going to cost $5.5 million. And then we thought that was phase one. And then if we had money, we would blow this wall out. You remember this? We're going to blow this wall out. And that would cost basically $2 million. But we thought we're just going to do project one, and then some way down the line, we'll do project two. Because $5.5 million is a lot of money to raise, and it just didn't seem that likely that we would get these things done, close to each other. But then you probably remember me talking about having two conversations, and one ended in a $1.5 million gift, and the other ended in a $1 million gift. So suddenly, before we really started the campaign, we have two gifts of $2.5 million, and at that point we decided, hey, let's do the projects together, because we basically have this project paid for, and we haven't done the congregational meeting or anything like that. So that was the original plan, and all that was going to cost $7.5 million. And it seemed like a lot, but because we had this $2.5 million start, it was basically saying it's the same as before. So then when we started thinking about that, we really started thinking about if we push this wall to the road, basically, or the sidewalk, and then turn the stage so you would look this way, the way it worked out with acoustics and sight lines is you'd have to cut off a lot of seats because you couldn't sit right here and then stare at a screen that was right on that wall. There were a number of problems that we could have anticipated, but we just didn't think this was a close next project. So that led us to, we really need to go ahead and build the sanctuary on the field, which was the original plan, which is why all those double doors are there. That's why those double doors are there, because when we built this building, we assumed we would go through those double doors one day to a sanctuary. So that is what we're going to do. But then that made that building more expensive. So we're starting at 7.5. Then we moved up to this building over here. We realized the technology and stuff for this building over here was a little bit more pricey than we had anticipated. So the next round went to $9 million. That was the next stage. And that was still sort of best guess because we were still working with guessing figures on how much things would cost. And then we got to that point and we felt pretty comfortable about that project and that number. But then as projects go on, then you find out some other things. And what we should have anticipated is parking becoming a problem. So we thought we could just have more parking by just clearing out some trees and people could park in the gravel. But it just, by the time you did that, it was not free and you didn't get as many spaces as you needed. So we decided, hey, if we're going to do it, now's the time to go ahead and do a parking lot, which will basically be where that rope is back in those woods. And you can see all the pictures out here in the lobby. And you probably notice they're hanging in the walls, in the hallway now. And so they'll be there forever now until we finish the project. So that added $700,000. That's a pretty nice parking lot. It's nicer than my house. And so now we've moved from $9 million to $10 million. That's the current price of the project. So I'm just letting you swallow that for a moment. And Rick will tell you more about the expenses. But each way along the process, we've really tried to calculate what's the best next step, and let's make a good step forward that we feel like we're good stewards, but we're not going to regret having not done something and then say, gosh, back in this day, we should have come back. I'll give you an example. When we started thinking about the sanctuary size, we started at 650. That was the number, which was basically the number this was going to be. And then Greg said, hey, that's fine. I can build whatever size you want. But if you want something bigger, do it right now, because you won't want to come back and blow out a wall or anything like that. And basically it was, I don't know quite the numbers, but I think it was basically $100,000 for 30 seats. So then you start going, okay, 650, do you want it to be 680, 710? These are and then every increment was $100,000. So we went from 650 to, I don't know what realistically was a number, but we thought about 900 and something maybe. And we landed on 750. We felt like that was a good number. Also, that was trying to keep the cost a little bit more manageable. So there's all these iterations that we went through to get to this particular point. And so that's where we are today. The elders have approved the building budget to be between $10 and $10.5 million. And so that's what we're working on currently. And again, Rick in a few minutes will give you a better breakdown of the expenses and the income. One thing that just doubles back with what Craig said is growth. So if you see this and you think of where were we in 2022, and when you see the average per Sunday, this is everybody in the building. So this is how many people are in the sanctuary plus how many people are in the nursery and the kids areas. Make sense? So that number, Craig would have said was, 325 maybe in the sanctuary, and then the other 60 or so between the nursery and the upstairs. So in 2023, you can see we jumped up quite a bit to 514, and you see the percentage changes, and then today it's 612. So that's almost a 60% increase over the last 2 years. Now today just happened to be a big number. Usually we have about 500 or 525 in the sanctuary, 2 services, and about 100 upstairs. Today we had 570 in the sanctuary. So that was, if you were in the second service, you're like, hey, no seats here today. And we're excited about that. But that just gives you a sense of where we are, where we're going. And if you didn't know, and there was no reason you'd want to keep these numbers in your head, you might say, well, it kind of looks the same to me. It's not the same. It's not the same upstairs. It's not the same here. It's not the same in Molo or Iron Leadership or El Cuerpo. Anywhere you touch at Christ Community Church, it was different 2 years ago. And we're grateful for it, but then you have to make some adjustments. And one big adjustment we're making, obviously, is on the building. When I talked to our capital campaign consultant about this meeting, he said, Paul, just tell your congregation they're off the charts. That's what I want you to tell them. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, look, this is what I do for a living. I've done it for 15 years. I've helped a bunch of churches in different sizes. And we have all these metrics we use to measure how much money should a church of your size with your budget raise. And you're off the charts. I don't have you on my chart. You're just in a different category. So I don't use you as an example because you're not a good example. Because everybody else is in the chart and you're off the chart. The amount of participation for membership, off the chart. He said, so again, I don't, there's a chart and then you guys are over here. You have a really massive percentage of people who are members who gave to your campaign. He said that really where you're lacking is follow-up. And he said the reason you're lacking in follow-up is there's nobody to follow up on. Everybody gave. So it's like a good stat, and how that works out. And then the percentage that the congregation has given to this date, to November 1st, let's say. And we're at 65%. And he said, again, it's an off-the-chart number to be 6 months into your campaign, and you already raised 65% of the total. So it's really, and you all know this, it's not that we've done anything fancy. We've just tried to communicate clearly, show you a picture of what we want to do, give you a reason why we want to do it, and then ask you to join with us. I mean, that's really what we've done in a nutshell. And God has just blessed us collectively that we're all off the chart. So if you're feeling down on yourself today, you can go home and say, well, Pastor Paul said, I'm off the chart. You're off the chart, at least today. Just a couple of things about giving. That'll be talked about at some point as we go through the next couple months. But if you haven't given to the campaign and you want to, there are these building campaign brochures. You can pick one up on the way out. If you're in a position to give stock, and some people do, it's a good way to give money through a retirement account or other ways so you don't get taxed for a gain. And I'm not going to be your financial advisor, but if that's you, then talk to Louisa. And then especially if you're 70 and a half, it's way more tax efficient for you to give your money through a stock account rather than withdraw the money, put it in your account, and then give it to the church. Does that make sense? Because what happens, it's like a laundry machine. You take $10,000 out, the laundry machine, known as the U.S. government, takes 20%, and then now you only have $80,000. But if you just ask those people to give $100 or $10,000, it's the whole amount. There's a piece of paper up here. If you don't know anything about that, this is just a good place to read and just be familiar with it. And then you should talk to Louisa and your accountant about how that should happen. So just information there. Now I'm going to ask Rick to come up and give us a little stat review, then I'll come back up.
All right, well, thank you, Paul, and good afternoon to each and every one of you. I hope today that you would have received, as you came in, a little brochure with some numbers on it. You'll see those same slides up top, but what I hope to do is be able to provide a little color of what those numbers represent for you. And I hopefully by the end of our session here today, you too can say things are accounted for. So let's go ahead and before we get into the numbers, I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing and who's been doing it. So that period of time that Paul talks about where it doesn't seem like anything was happening, you know, that caterpillar was just doing its thing and you didn't see anything happening. It has just been tremendous for the effort that's been given by the staff to be able to spend time to be able to create a vision for what these buildings should be, how they should operate, who we want to continue to be as a church. And the church members that have been involved with Greg Taylor, Howard Capps, Charlie Kazir, Ryan Short, Jesse Thompson. Every one of those individuals has devoted just an enormous amount of time to plan for what you're going to be able to see today and planning for our future. So if you see them, thank them, because we could not be here today without their help. So let's look at the project cost. If we look at that, we want to take a view from two aspects. One is construction, the actual building of the buildings themselves. And then once we build them, we need to outfit them. So if we look at the costs associated with each, one of the philosophies that we were using as we went through all the design, all the planning, was that we want to build a church that's not only going to be here for tomorrow, but it's going to be for our children, it's going to be for our grandchildren, and even their children. So with that in mind, we did look at some things that say, what is it going to take for us to be able to ensure that that happens? We might have spent a little more money on a different feature, but in the end, it's serving that philosophy that the church is going to be here. And I'll go through those as we go through it. If we look at the construction, that number of 1.1 million includes moving dirt. And before you can move dirt, you have to move about 121 trees, that will be part of that expense. And as Paul mentioned, the parking lot, in total, there will be 137 new paved parking spaces out there for us. So that will give us plenty of room for growth. Sanctuary is going to be a separate, we've looked at that as a separate entity. It's a building by itself. Everything has been addressed as the sanctuary. That's going to be 2.1 million in total for building the building. And as Paul said, it'll seat about 750 people. And then the third aspect is the classroom. And the classroom also includes the renovation of this current building, both the first and second floors. So when you take a step back and look at that, it's $8.7 million, and almost every aspect of our current site and our future site is going to be touched in some way. Okay. Within the areas that we looked at for longevity and the features within the sanctuary and within the classroom building, the roof structure. Typically, the construction is made of wood trusses. Due to the size of our sanctuary, it really extended the capability for manufacturing wood trusses. So we started to look at steel trusses. Steel costs a little bit more, but in essence, it gives us a stronger building. And in this area of the country, near the coast, the months between July and October, steel trusses will give us a much more solid building to have. And it will have a reduced amount of our insurance premium by 40%. Steel is much cheaper in terms of insurance. So we felt that that was very, very valued to be able to go in that direction. When we talk about the roof, this current building, the shingles are only 12, 13 years old and they're shot. The roof needs to be replaced. So as part of the building project, we are going to replace this roof so that all 3 roofs, both the sanctuary, the classroom, and this building, will look the same. The material is going to be steel. Steel, why? Because the steel roof will last 40 to 60 years. And we won't have to be, as a church, looking down the road in another 15 years to saying we need to come up with X amount of dollars to replace the roofs on our much larger campus right now. So the money spent on steel for a roof is well worth it. And the third item is the heating and ventilating aspects within each of the buildings. The design has been made so that each system is engineered towards the needs of that particular building. The sanctuary, a large area, it has a system to handle the volume that's needed for times where it's being used. The classroom areas, smaller rooms, its design is for more efficient units that can be individually controlled. So each area that you go into was looked at to say, what is the best way to utilize the resources that we have to make that the most efficient way? And that'll help us monthly on our electric bill. So those are just 3 examples where we may have spent a little bit more money, but in the long term, the return is well worth it. When you look at, once we have the buildings, we have to outfit them. And we need furniture, we need furnishings, we need equipment, and we need security. And that amount is about $879,000. A majority of that is for the sanctuary. Remember, though, that the sanctuary, we want to retain the same type of experience that we have here today in a newer, larger facility. We're going to be able to do that, and the band is going to be all on the stage. You'll get to see everyone, but it'll. Jesse Thompson has been working with us on that and has done just an outstanding job with Dan Mercurio of setting that up for us. That totals $1.2 million. So that's how we get to the 8.7 for the construction, 1.2 taking us to $10 million. We really try to look at the details for each area and identify what our needs are going to be. We wanted to try to avoid not getting into building and find out, oh, we should have thought of this. We should have considered doing something a different way. That's the time that we've been spending, is looking at those details. We feel pretty confident that we've got them. But if you've ever built a house or a building, you know something's going to happen. Something's going to arise that you're really not certain you weren't planning on. And because of those things do happen, and in a project this size, we've allotted $400,000 for that type of situation that may arise. So you take a $10 million project, we add $400,000 to that. We are now looking at a planned project cost of $10.4 million. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So from that, we need to look at the income side of it. So we now know what it's going to cost. What's our ability to provide the income and provide being able to pay for this? You see that we have $2.5 million was our original seed pledges. And if you add the $2 million sale of Wilshire, that church, if you have not heard, was sold to Greater Church of Wilmington for $2 million, and that is expected to close at the end of March of 2025. If you add the $850,000 that the session has set aside over the years for this project, as well as the $1.1 million that we currently have received from the congregation, consider the $2 million of remaining pledges, that leaves us with $8.4 million, leaving a $1.6 million approximately of underfunded expenses. And in table format, that's what that looks like. Okay. So with our planned project cost of anywhere between 10 and 10.4, we have anywhere between 1.3 and 1.7, so we're going to say 1.6 million. Oh, okay, yes, I'm sorry. Okay. One of the things that, because we are a 501(c) nonprofit organization, the government allows us not to have to pay tax on materials. So we will receive, we estimate about $250,000 back from the U.S. government for the taxes that we paid for the materials to build the buildings. So we consider that as income. Okay, thank you. With that $1.6 million underfunding, we would need to take out a mortgage. And if you've been hearing the news, you've seen over the last couple of months, there has been a decline in the mortgage rates, which really works well for us. And to the people that we are talking with, we fully expect those interest rates to continue to decline. No one knows where they're going to go, but we feel as though by the time we need to trigger our mortgage, that rate is going to be somewhere between 4 and 4.5%. And for utilizing a $1.8 million number, trying to be conservative, our loan would be for 20 years, and the amounts that we would have as a monthly premium would be somewhere between $11,000 and $11,400. And you can see there that the annual payment then is somewhere between $130,000 and $137,000 a year. So that gives you an idea of what our costs are going to be, what our income is, and where we would be after the building has taken occupancy and the mortgage that we would retain. Okay, let me give this back to Paul.
Okay. All right, now if you're like my wife who's not an accountant, that feels like Japanese, like, okay, sounds like a lot of money, trust you guys. But I just want to make sure you've gotten as clear a picture as you have. A couple of things I would just add. One is, first of all, thank you, Rick. I think we all, he thanked everybody else, but I was talking to Greg one day, and he said, you know what makes the project so delightful is working with Rick. I work with a lot of different people on sites, and Rick's been the best person I've worked with in a long time, so you can get the sense of that just be listening to him. Whatever mortgage we end up with, my personal goal is to have it paid off before I retire, because I don't want to retire with any debt. And some of the elders say, good, we'll just have a mortgage for 25 more years and we'll keep that around. But that is not my plan. But I just want you, I mean, we're going to base it on some number like 20 years, but the goal would be once the project's done, we find out how much it is, then try to set in motion how to, move that forward in a more timely way, like in the next 3 or 5 years rather than 20 years. We don't want to hold on to that for that length of time. Another thing I wanted to say here is when we build the building, there won't be any initial current building disruption. So we will completely finish that building before we take the children and move them into the building, obviously. We will completely finish that building before we need to move from this sanctuary to that sanctuary. So it'll be one Sunday, we'll say this is our last Sunday, and the next Sunday will be over there. So there's no disruption on how that works. Now the disruption is going to come when we get into those buildings and then we need to retrofit this building because it's both upstairs and downstairs. And that might take 6 months or so to retrofit. And during however long that is, there'll be quite a bit of disruption. And, the office may be in a different room, or we don't even know exactly where we're all going to be fitting in that time. But that will happen after both of those projects are completely done. The retrofit is not simultaneous to the projects. So these two getting done, and Greg, I think I've been telling people 18 months from when we start building. Is that a fair number? So let's just say March 1st. Now this is Greg Taylor, and if you have any questions about dates, this is the man you want to see right here. He used to be my friend until this moment. But if it's March 1st of 2025, then let's just say it's August 1st of 2026. I mean, somewhere in that. Does that give you sort of a frame? Okay, so we've tried to frame up how we got to where we are, then how much it costs and how much we have income coming in, the mortgage that's left over, and the time. So now, any questions? Because yes. Oh, okay. If you want to ask a question, I'll either repeat it or you can ask me or you can ask Rick, whatever. But now's a good time to ask any kind of questions you have on it. It doesn't even have to be what we covered. It could be something different. Yes, Ned.
Hey, Paul. From what you were saying, do you mean the children's building will be fully built without any construction over here, and then we would begin there, or we're going to do them simultaneously?
Those two will be simultaneous.
Okay. I'm heard something you said that made me wonder about
No,
that.
that's good. That's good. I mean, how it's going to work, and Greg could correct me, but, you're going to see these things, one starts up, then the other one starts up, this gets bricked, that gets bricked. So it may not be exactly equal when you get an occupancy, but they'll more or less be simultaneous. We'll move into them. There'll probably be a little space, a couple months, and then we'll say, okay, now let's start the demo, here and upstairs. I'm glad you clarified that. Yes, Jeff. He's bringing you a mic.
Considering the parking are we losing parking initially? You're adding 100 and whatever parking spaces. Are we losing parking as part of the construction or during the process?
Great question. Really? The goal is to at least get either the parking done before the project starts, or at least completely graveled where you could park on it like it is right now, because Greg doesn't want to stage his stuff in our current parking lot any more than he has to. So at a minimum, that'll be cleared with gravel that's parkable. So if there is some space taken up in the current parking lot, we would more than make up with it with what's out there. It's possible that the whole thing's completely done. Is that possible, Greg?
We will lose some space for a short period of time when this construction starts. The parking that's in the gravelled area, it will be taken up for some short period of time.
While you're trying to build the parking lot
Right.
itself.
But we cannot start construction until that parking lot, because there's just no space.
Yeah.
There's no parking spaces available. We're gonna have a crunch for a short period of time, and then we've decided to get the parking spaces, then we can start construction.
Okay, great. So the crunch is building the parking lot. That's however long that takes. Then it won't be a crunch on the construction of the building. Jeff?
Any of the parking that is being taken is only during construction. We're not losing any parking, period. After the construction's
No,
even
we're
done.
adding 130 spaces more or less to what we currently have. What's the number of parking spaces we have now?
205.
Yeah, Greg.
You mentioned the dates, and I want to be careful in saying this. The city may sign off as quick as this next week for the zoning. It may be within 2 weeks. just to
Send
tell
all
you.
emails and frustration
Just
to
want to
Greg
say,
tmctaylor@gmail.com.
you mentioned a January start. If possible, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, trees will start coming down. That would be the intent. Right now, the plan and permitting, now that we have everything submitted to the portal, things seem to be progressing. We're not far from, doesn't look like, from having a building permit. So
Oh, great.
we're surprised. But I want to tell you, you mentioned January. It may start a little earlier, and we're trying to get going.
Okay, great. That's good. That's good news. We'll take that. Thank you. Yes.
Curious about, I love seeing the numbers that you put up of attendance. I feel like in the past, I've heard you mention kind of 600 was your cap off for seats, and then the church would have another church plant. So with more in the sanctuary, is that just backup? Are you thinking we'll grow and that's okay? Or what is your kind of thought process there?
I used to like you, Laura, but now it's a little less currently at this moment. You know, this is one of those things that's just, it's challenging, you know, to try to figure out what's the point. Because even if you say 600 or some number, who knows if you're ever get to that number, you know? Or if you get to that number and then 2 months later, you're 100 people past the number. Well, we've grown a lot in the last 2 years, but we didn't drop flyers across the city or anything like that to make that happen. It was just God doing that. So when we went to 750, one factor was we would like at least for some time to meet together rather than two separate services. But 80% of a room being occupied is the quote full mark. So 80% of 750 is, I don't know, 620 or something like that. So that's sort of how we got to that number. So 306 were in here this morning, and there's probably 375 chairs, but it didn't feel like there were 75 empty chairs. It felt like there was no place to sit. So that's the first thing, and then the second thing is, if we wanted to grow, then we could decide if we want to do two services and what that want to do, or we want to grow, but we want to grow by starting another church, then we can decide that. It's possible that by the time we get in there, you just go, I mean, we're past the number, right? Because it's 2 years away. If you grow by 60%, that's possible. I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer on that, because praise the Lord. But like, don't you wish you could just move in right now and everybody, I don't know. So that's where we are. That's a great, and really it's not like we landed the plane and we're here forever. It's just trying to guess how that's going to work out in the future. We can still be friends, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a question about the overhead cost after everything's completed. How is that going to affect us monthly?
I think that's either a Rick or a Mark answer for that. It's a great question. So now it costs more to heat and air and all that stuff, clean. So Mark, you want to start there?
You know, we built that into we did a 5-year budget based on the project. So we went from the end of the project, and then we did calculations on costs 5 years out based on estimated cost of
energy, estimated cost of lighting, those type of things. So we built it into the future budgets, and based on what we think our growth projections are, we can sustain that and continue to grow the ministries consistent with what we've done in the past. So we definitely have looked at it, but when you go that far out, a lot of that is guessing. But we have looked at it.
Hey, that's a great question. Yeah, Mike.
So unless this is changed, it still appears that there's no bathrooms in the new sanctuary. And I asked this question to Greg in one of our meetings, and he explained in detail why. And I think it'd be helpful for everybody here to hear that. So when we get in the new sanctuary, everybody's not saying, why didn't they think about building new bathrooms?
Okay, or everybody's coming to find Greg. So either way, this helps. So Greg, Mark, come up here and give Greg that microphone so he can talk about bathrooms.
I've lost my voice. Per the code, the sanctuary, the 1,300 seat sanctuary, the bathrooms that are provided meet that criteria. So that was the original intent. However, in building a new facility next door, we have built the same amount of bathrooms in that building, for just logistics of travel, so that it will take a lot of the burden off of these bathrooms. But the bathrooms that are here now would meet a 1,300 seat auditorium. Now,
So
you could always put more.
Yeah, just for clarity, when we put it doesn't seem like it on Sunday, but that's what the code requires you to build as a minimum.
Oh, well,
We may still have that, I think.
no, actually, that was resolved Friday after a
Oh,
lot of
good.
conversation with CFPUA. Let's just say, if we'd have added more bathrooms in the taps, it would have probably been another $38,000 fee to this Cape Fear Public Utilities, and then another $200 a month just base rate on your water. But they have agreed, and they agreed, and they've noted that they are letting us stay with their existing tap and not increasing. And
So just the monthly fee plus the price per ounce of water that goes through there really escalated when you went from this size pipe, to this size pipe. So again, that was one of those savings now, and big savings as you move forward. So these bathrooms will basically be replicated right when you go through the little hallway that connects the two buildings. You do understand it's not outside and then back inside. It's all inside, and there'll be bathrooms. And our guess is that that'll feel a little bit more like the main entrance. We don't know how the water's going to run once we get the buildings, but a lot of people will come in there and have kids and probably use that bathroom with some frequency before they come up to the sanctuary and need to use that bathroom.
And there's a second bathroom on the second floor
Yep.
and a family toilet on the first floor.
Yeah. In
So-
the children's area. Or not in the
No,
children's, but
outside.
in the lobby area.
lobby
There's
area.
just a single standalone family bathroom. Good. These are great questions. Yeah. Hold on one second.
How are you going to handle the classrooms once this building begins the construction work? Like, where are the groups going to meet and the childcare and that sort of thing?
When we start doing something here, we'll have all the classrooms in the new building. That's the classroom building is full of classrooms. So especially during the week, if there's meetings during the week, they would meet in that area, most likely. And then they would be transferred back during, once that's done. If it's on a Sunday, that's going to be the part that's really tight, because let's say we have adult Sunday school right now, and we only have one class. That's one of the challenges we have currently. Well, it may be that we just don't have adult Sunday school for some period of time because there's literally no room on Sunday except for children. That's possible. I'm not even sure, what the college and that group's going to do. That's part of the, how big are we, how many rooms we need. I don't think it'll be a problem during the week because there'll be space available, either upstairs or downstairs in that building. But on Sunday, that period of time, that's going to be crunch time for everybody. Great question. These are good questions because they help us think about those things as well.
I was just wondering about large fellowship gatherings. What space will be used for that?
Like Easter outside?
Well, not that big, but
Okay.
Even just fellowship gatherings, like even our Monday morning group sometimes has a party, and by the time
No more parties, sorry. Well, I think that what's going to happen while we're deconstructing and reconstructing this, everybody's going to have to get on the sacrifice train. Like I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I can't promise any room will be available because I don't know how that's going to work out. Now, once it's all built, there'll be plenty of rooms for all that. But whether you use the lobby, that's possible because it has the least amount of reconstruction, rather than like the offices are being really reconstructed. All the rooms upstairs are being reconstructed. Or you use one of these nursery rooms down here. I mean, that wouldn't be a big room, but the lobby would be available. You could do something, in one of the other rooms in the new building, depending on the size. But when we're reconstructing this, everybody's going to have to do hey, that's this period of time, and I don't know when and how we can meet during that time. Carly will be able to figure that out for you.
But afterwards, Lucy, the adult education area, the rooms are very large. They will hold quite a few people. So I'd encourage you to look at the layout that's out in the lobby and showing that section. And you'll see that most rooms in the adult area are as big as the current adult room, if not bigger. So to handle large quantity of people.
Yeah. I think there's lots of things to be excited about, but especially Sunday morning adult discipleship or adult content, we're exceptionally limited on. We have one room that's not very big. And we hope that really changes, and Matt will kind of take us there. Once everything's done, we'll have a more robust Sunday morning for adults. Whether small groups want to meet there or, a specialty group wants to meet there or it's a Sunday school class, right now we don't have any options, but we'll have some options when that happens. Did we answer your question? What's the part we didn't answer?
Well, I just thought that there might be a, quote, fellowship hall or...
Like when it's all done or during the construction?
When it's all done.
More or less, that's going to be this.
This. Well,
Yes.
This is good.
Yeah, either this. That's a great clarifying question. So the two things that will happen when it's all done, one, you could have the lobby. That's possible. Yeah. Two, you could have this room. Or three, you could have the gym, depending on what kind of, because the gym is connected to a kitchen. So it depends on what sort of feel you want for your meeting. Right. But it can be closed off, or there's 3 garage doors that open and come out to a patio, and that could be something that fits your group. So those would be the 3 places we'd put people on.
All right.
What's the plan
Thank
for
you.
this area here once construction is finished?
Once it's done, what's going to happen is you see this sort of half wall come down from the ceiling. There'll be a wall there. And so the room will shrink down some, and some of that's going to be offices for El Cuerpo, and some of it's going to be storage. But this will, like when I have iron leadership, I would stay in here. I wouldn't go to the new sanctuary because it's too big. And I think a lot of groups that are in that size would find themselves using this space. It'll be set up just the same. We'll have the sound booth here. So anything you need microphone wise, it'll look just like this. It'll just be a wall right there. So I think this will feel more like a fellowship hall and or kind of a large group meeting. That was helpful. I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Eljoy.
From Tobias. Is the gym actually
It's not carpeted, but it's not wood like the NBA or something. It's like what's the floor, Greg, for that?
It is a gym floor, a softer material, standard gym floor composite material.
With 2 hoops.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 hoops.
So it is actually a gym.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's, it's multi-purpose because it'll be used for Vacation Bible School, that sort of thing. It'll be used for meetings, especially if it's nice. People open up those garage doors and use it in lots of different ways. So that's going to be a great space. But it does have a floor you can play basketball on, not just carpet. Great question. Yes.
Will the seating in the new sanctuary be these chairs here, or will it be fixed chairs?
It'll be chairs similar to this, if not these chairs, but will not be fixed. All right, so we
Move these and purchase addition. So if we wanted to have another setup like this,
we're gonna need more chairs, yeah. And the good news is that this fabric is still available, so we don't have to recover all of them.
We wouldn't need 400 chairs in here just because it wouldn't end up holding that many. So we'd use some of the chairs over there. But this isn't going to be empty and we have to cart chairs back and forth every time we want to use it. This needs to be, you come in, it looks like this, and I start my iron leadership and nobody has to move a chair. Does that make sense? Yeah. Deacons are clapping. Deacons are clapping. And look, we use this room a lot to turn it over, but we're not anticipating a lot of turnover in the sanctuary. It's just too complicated, it's too big, it's too hard, you get it. Too much technology. So it's really going to be this is used, or the lobby is used, or the gym is used, rather than the sanctuary is used. Great question. Yes?
I have a question. And looking at the drawing out here, I can't tell proportionally. Thank you, Mark. Stay on regular. In looking at the drawing out there and trying to compare to this room, line of sight from the back row up until the pulpit, is the pulpit going to be higher so that, it's difficult now if I sit in the back and I'm kind of short to see what's going on.
I don't know the answer
Yeah,
to that question precisely.
It's going to be at the same level, Tom. The pulpit will be at the same level
As this one?
as this one here.
So we'll be okay.
And the distance from the front to back?
20 more feet.
20 feet deeper.
And when we looked at that and looked at the line of sight, and we calculated what that would be to be able to get that. We actually even looked at having a slanted floor, so that but that did not prove to be a viable way that we wanted to go. So our best option was to retain a flat floor and retain the stage at the current height that we're at.
I think one thing that might be helpful is we can't do anything on the stage right now because it's so crowded. So let's say the communicants class, they're all down here. New members are all down here. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff we do down here. All that'll go to the stage. So you wouldn't have anything down here, minus maybe me coming down at the end of the sermon or something like I do, but all the things that you'd want to see happening that are up here that are really hard to see if it's on the floor, they'll all happen on the stage.
Even sitting in the back today, I could not even see the screen with the people standing in front of me. I could not see that screen up there.
So
it's a real
It's a good question.
So the
screens on the sides or something.
Sure, and to help that,
Something like that would be helpful.
sure. To help that, the sanctuary, the ceiling is going to be 4.5, almost 5 feet higher. We have 20-foot ceilings in there. There are going to be screens on the left and on the right up high that you'll be able to see. So you will not have any intrusion
Good.
this way.
Yeah, we wanted to get away from the lowering and, that whole thing. And that because of the way this is, you're not using 100% of that screen. So once they're higher and the screens are bigger and then they're on the side, that we hope that takes care of quite a few of those problems. Yes. Great question. We don't know the answer to that right now.
Because that's where some of our problem is seeing. Short people, you get back in here and you get some tall people up there.
Yeah.
We can't, we use the bulletins a lot of times.
Yeah.
So just saying.
I don't think it'll be a hard thing to see words on a screen, when you're singing because of the elevation of the ceiling and the size of the screen.
We just might not be able to see you.
Well, there's some benefit of that. To just say, just close your eyes and listen right now. No, that's a technology that's possible. Let's say that. It certainly will be like the way I have to do my sermons now, and I don't know what it would change that much, is that if I wanted to use a picture, I really need to put it at the very end or the very beginning because I don't want to do the up and down thing, where on that, there could be some sort of background, and then I say, hey, here's something I want you to see, and it would be so much easier. But in terms of getting Paul on a bigger screen, I've got 2 years of exercise to get through. Because, on a screen, they add width on that, and we need to get the camera angle to come down. Good question. That's a good question. Some of these questions are great questions that it's sort of like, once you open it up, you see how it works, and then you have to dial it in to say that for whatever reason, we didn't anticipate that. Good question. Anybody got one more? Okay, yes, Greg or Jeff.
Is there going to be an elevator in the other building? Or
No.
just one here?
One elevator.
Okay.
Good question. Nice, not necessary, expensive. For the most part, the people who need an elevator are going to be in the building right above them, rather than the adult stuff being in the other building. You're going to go right upstairs, and it's all going to be adults classrooms. Good question. One more, yes.
Where it says open below where the gym is there a balcony there where you can look over to see the gym? Okay.
From upstairs, no. Balcony, middle school boys, insurance costs, balls being thrown up. Hey, watch this is your last thing you say. So good. Those are great questions. Great questions. All right. Well, we're all going to hang around, meaning Mark and I and Rick and Greg. And if you need some kind of question answered, I feel like we've made a lot of great progress. So I think you sense that. Especially when we get this permit, we'll be making an announcement about it because immediately you'll see it and it'll have an uptick in terms of just the sense of excitement, but also the sense of disruption. And I'm really not concerned about this. I think other people in other churches have said, hey, are you concerned about the disruption? We're not really a complaining kind of church. I'm grateful for that. We just don't have a whole lot of complainers. And so it's like, hey, in order to get this, we just kind of have to, suck it up right now and get to, that's okay. Nobody's really has a lot of heartburn on that. I don't want you to feel like I can't offer a suggestion. Does that make sense? Because I'm not going to receive that as a complaint. I'm just going to receive it as, did you notice something? Like an elevator question, just did you notice something? And that could help us in some way, say, well, we didn't notice that. Let's notice it and see if we can make an adjustment on that. All right, let me pray. Lord, there's so much happening in the world, and then we just drill down to our little world. There's so much happening in every person's life here. We could have just had a prayer meeting about needs that people have in this room. Their faith, their finances, their relationships, their children, their grandchildren, their work, their sadness, their anxiety. We could have spent a whole hour praying for our country as we stand at the edge of an election that probably is not quite the edge that we think it is, because you have planted us in a kingdom that cannot be shaken. So we don't live at an edge anymore. We used to, but no more. And so I pray that as we go through the next 2 days, we go through the next 2 years, we live as people who live in an unshakable kingdom. That would be a mark. And that, as we talked about this morning, we be dispensers of grace because of the way you have invited us into your huddle forever. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, great. We'll be around if you have any questions, and the pictures are in the lobby if you need that. If you need financial information, up here, it's all around. Okay.